Hello there. 20 of the biggest boxing upsets in history. Uh, I could go on Google to find the top 20 boxing upsets, but then that wouldn't be my choice, would it? That would be somebody else's choice. I'm here to give my opinion. Uh, I'm confident in my own ability, and I don't need to listen to so called experts. I do have a wee look at Google so as I don't leave anything out or anyone out. So here we go. Uh, Number 20, Barry McGuigan against Stevie Cruz in Las Vegas, 1986. McGuigan had won the title against Eusebio Pedrosa. He defended against Bernard Taylor and Danielo Cabrera. Then he wanted to go to America to make the big money. Barney Eastwood didn't want to take him to America. Barney Eastwood wanted to promote him here in Belfast in England. Uh, but Barry was after the money. And for the life of me, I can't understand why they boxed at the hottest time of the year and the hottest time of the day against a wee lad from Texas who was well used to the heat. And initially, the odds were something like 8 to 1 against Cruz, but by fight time, they had fell where something like 2 to 1. So they knew something that we didn't. Uh, if Barry, who fought a courageous fight, uh, hadn't have went down twice in the last round, he would have won the fight. But the intense heat nearly cost him his life. Number 19, Julio Cesar Chavez against Frankie Randall. Chavez at the time was 90-0, incredible record. But Randall was a great fighter, one of my favourite fighters. And in this first fight here, it went to a split decision. But Randall had Chavez down for the first time in Chavez's career in the 11th round. Cracking knockdown. And he won a split decision. In the rematch, it was stopped. Chavez had a bad cut. And it was stopped around about the 8th or 9th round. But it went to the scorecards. And Chavez was just in front. But Randall was starting to really come on. So he got out of jail there. Years later, they eventually had a third fight. Chavez won in Mexico, but Randall was well finished by then. What a superb fighter Randall was, and Chavez. Number 18, Evander Holyfield against Mike Tyson. Going into the fight, Tyson was a clear favourite. He had made the comeback. He had done his time in jail. He had beat Frank Bruno for the WBC title, beat him very convincingly. And Holyfield was on the downslide, everyone thought. He had the fights with Bowe, he had the fights with Moore, he hadn't been impressive. No one gave him a chance. No one, but I remember predicting, I think Tyson will win, but this will be like Hagler Hearns. But no one expected Holyfield to win. And do you know why he won? He stood up to Mike Tyson. He stood up to bullies. And he wasn't afraid. And in between rounds, as I had said previously in other podcasts, his cornerman wasn't giving him instructions on how to attack or defend. He was simply saying to Evander, who's a Christian, concentrate on Jesus. And he pulled off one of the biggest upsets in boxing history. Number 17, John Stracey against Jose Napoles in Mexico. Napoles, great champion. Fantastic champion. I would have him in the top 5 greatest welterweights of all time. Stracey really believed in himself. Napoles was actually Cuban, but he lived in Mexico. And Stracey pulled off a fantastic upset that nobody could see, that nobody predicted. Number 16, Kirkland Lang against Roberto Duran. Lang was just a good British fighter. He wasn't really at world level. And it was seen as a handy enough fight for Duran, who was coming off the Nomas He was exiled. He was living in Florida. His own people had turned against him. Lowest point of his life. He hadn't impressed. And Lang was a bit of a mover. Duran had trouble with movers. But still, uh, credit to Lang, who stood up to Duran, done what he had to do, and then pulled off the win, and then went missing for a year. Nobody could find him. He could have made a lot of money in that year, but he eventually came back, and Fred Hutchins knocked him out in 10 rounds. So sad. Number 15, Roy Jones against Antonio Tarver. This is the rematch. Roy Jones was untouchable, unbeatable. At the time, he could have been the greatest boxer in history. But he had stepped up the heavyweight and well beat John Ruiz for the heavyweight title. He either should have retired or stayed at heavyweight, but he took something like 2.5 stone off to come back down the light heavy or super middle, I think it was light heavy, to fight Antonio Tarver. The first fight they had was a close win for Jones, but it was controversial. A lot of people thought Tarver won, but Jones looked jaded. The rematch, Tarver knocked Jones out in 2 rounds. And there was a steady decline in Jones's form after that, sadly. Number 14, Hasim Rahman against Lennox Lewis in South Africa. What a punch in the 5th round. Oh, what a punch. Lewis out cold. But Lewis had been over in South Africa and had been filming scenes for the film Ocean's 11 with Brad Pitt. Did he get caught up in that? Did that take his focus and his mind away from the fight? But what an upset. Number 13, Sandy Sadler against Willie Pep. Sandy Sadler and Willie Pep, two of the greatest featherweights of all time. But getting into the fight, Pep had 1 loss in 135 fights. But he was knocked out in 4 rounds by Sandy Sadler in an incredible upset. They boxed 4 times and Sadler won 3 of them. But here's the thing, and people are going, well, why isn't Sandy Sadler considered the greatest featherweight of all time instead of Willie Pep? Well, the answer to that is all 4 fights were after Willie Pep was in a plane crash, which broke his back. I think it was 5 people died in the plane crash. Crashed into a forest. And the doctors told Willie Pep that he'd never walk again. Right? Within months he was boxing again. But he was just lost that wee something and he couldn't get it back. He was still an incredible fighter, but just lost that wee something. And the 4 fights with Sandy Sadler, who was a fantastic fighter, were after the plane crash. Number 12, Muhammad Ali against George Foreman. Ali went into the fight a huge underdog. Foreman had obliterated the 2 guys who had beat Ali, Joe Frazier and Ken Norton. No one thought he had a chance. But Ali talked to Foreman during the fight. Psychological warfare. It was the first time it was ever used. Ali made Foreman doubt himself. When Foreman was hitting Ali, Ali was saying, is that all you got? Is that all you got, George? They told me you could punch hard, George. You hit like a sissy. And that just made George matter. And George was running the energy. In the 8th round, Ali knocked him out. Number 11, Muhammad Ali against Leon Spinks. Going into the fight, Muhammad Ali was 55 wins and just them 2 defeats to Frazier and Norton. Both losses have been avenged twice. Spinks going into the fight had 6 wins and 1 draw. It was ignominious. But he was Olympic gold medalist. But for Ali to lose to someone like that with so little skill, that should have been the end of the road. But he continued to box on, sadly. Number 10, Lloyd Honeyghan against Don Curry. Where do you get a wee sip of my tea? There's a wee second here. Lovely. uh, Lloyd Honeyghan really believed in himself. I have to give him credit. I have to give him so much credit. Because no one gave him a chance. But he really believed. And he attacked Curry like a kamikaze pilot. But Curry was dated. Curry was weight drained. Curry was gaunt. He was weightish for a black guy, pale. Uh, he just wasn't at the races. There was something wrong. He wasn't sharp. He wasn't punching hard. But Lloyd Honeyghan had said the day before, I'm going to go out and smash his face in. And he done just that. Can't take the credit away from him. But Curry, just after that, there was a steady decline, just like Roy Jones. Sometimes these fighters think they're invincible. And when they get beat, they can't come to terms with it. Number 9, Marvin Hagler against Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard got into the fight, had one fight in 5 years against Kevin Hard, and he was dropped. So Hagler was at a wee bit maybe past his prime. Was he 32, 33, Hagler? But his reign was fantastic at middleweight, and no one thought Sugar Ray had a chance. But Sugar Ray says about betting, if you bet on me, what was it he said? Anyway, Sugar Ray Leonard boxed a majestic fight. He wee bit disappointed with Marvin Hagler. I thought he was very circumspect in the first 4 rounds, but taking nothing away from Leonard, Leonard was fantastic. All credit to him. Nobody thought he had a chance. But there you go. Number 8, George Foreman against Michael Moore. George Foreman was 45. He had his chance against Holyfield. He made a comeback. He done really well in the comeback. Won all his fights. Beat some good fighters. Got the chance. Got the opportunity against Evander Holyfield. And Holyfield sort of in his prime then. Won a tough fight. Foreman covered himself in glory. Give Holyfield a tough, hard fight. But he lost. And he lost unanimously. And he had another shot against Tommy Morrison. Tommy Morrison not nowhere near as good as Evander Holyfield, and beat Foreman pretty convincingly. And we all thought that was the end. But George Foreman knew it wasn't the end. And a few more wins, he got the shot at Michael Moore, big, massive outsider. And Moore was a southpaw, was well winning the fight. And in the 10th round, George Foreman landed the big right hand, left, right, boom, boom, and Moore was out. And what an incredible feat. 20 years after losing his title to Muhammad Ali, he regains the heavyweight title. The greatest feat in boxing history, in my opinion. Number 7, Ken Norton against Muhammad Ali. Norton, who was unknown, but had a decent enough record, but no real substance in it, was handpicked. But Norton pulled off an incredible shock, breaking Ali's jaw in the process. Norton would go on to prove that he was a fantastic fighter, but no one's seen that then. It was such a big upset, and people thought it was the end for Ali because he lost convincingly to Joe Frazier. He lost convincingly against Norton and got his jaw broke. But Ali came back to avenge them defeats twice over, beating Frazier twice and beating Norton twice. Number 6, Jimmy Braddock against Maxie Burr. Burr was an incredible heavyweight. His physique was amazing. He was massively built, big shoulders, big arms, very tall, very formidable. Would have scared you. He'd KO'd Schmeling convincingly. He'd KO'd Canera. He had Canera down 11 times. People thought he was invincible at the time, but to lose to such a weak opponent as Jimmy Braddock, what's happening now is people are saying the fix was in. People are saying he threw the fight. But that wasn't said at the time. It's what's being said now because it was so amazing. But what an upset. The Cinderella Man, Jimmy Braddock. Number 5, Jack Johnson against Jess Willard. That was in Cuba. It was 1915. Years later, Johnson said the fight was fixed. But at the time, uh, they didn't really say that. Willard landed 20, it was a 25th round, 26th round. Willard landed a big right hand that knocked Johnson out. It looked like a convincing knockout to me. Normally, when the fix is in, they go down from innocuous punches, but believe me, this would have knocked an elephant out. So I don't know about the fix. Johnson was pretty old, and was he just a sore loser? Number 4, Muhammad Ali against Sonny Liston. Liston was considered unbeatable. At the time, Liston, they were calling him the greatest heavyweight of all time. Normally you've got to wait 10, 15 years and then they look back and they say, wow, how good was he? But at the time, they were going, Liston's unbeatable. Who's going to beat him? The greatest heavyweight of all time. And that's where, Joe Louis, champion for 12 years, made 25 title defences. They're saying Liston was better than him. But they thought he was unbeatable. But Muhammad Ali, this brash Olympic gold medalist, this guy who talked non-stop, who taunted opponents, who prophesied what round he would knock his opponent out in. He had the poor fight against not Sonny Banks, he was dropped by Sonny Banks, but Doug Jones, it was a close fight with Doug Jones just before this, and I just didn't think he had the mettle to tackle Sonny Liston. But, yeah, but Ali won the first fight. I think Liston took him too lightly, I really, really do. He won the first fight convincingly. Liston retired in his corner. A damaged shoulder, but Ali was well in front, and Ali had hurt him a few times and shocked Liston. In the rematch in Lewiston, Maine, the fix was in. There's absolutely no doubt, because it was an innocuous punch. Sonny Liston was one of the most durable heavyweights ever. Marty Marshall broke his jaw and he still continued. No one had never knocked him down, to my knowledge. But to go down from such an innocuous punch, it wasn't even, he was going backwards, Ali. It was just a tap. So the fix was definitely in. Number 3, Randolph Turton against Sugar Ray Robinson. Robinson was undertaking a European tour. He was 132 fights with just one defeat to Jake LaMotta, a guy he had avenged that defeat over 5 times. Robinson, the greatest boxer in history. Nobody doubted that. Turpin thought it was a novel, shocking mismatch. But Turpin was awkward. He was very strong, and he believed in himself, and he won that fight on a unanimous decision. It was such a shock. But was it 52 days, 60, 64? I think it was 64 days later, because they called Turpin the 64-day hero. 64 days later, he crossed the Atlantic, and Robinson avenged that defeat, stopping Turpin in 10 rounds. But Turpin still gave Robinson a hell of a fight. He was very awkward. The styles didn't mesh, and Robinson, couldn't do the things he could usually do against opponents. So that's probably why there was no third fight. Robinson was badly cut in the second fight, and he needed the fight was going to be stopped. And I think his corner was told it'll give him one more round, and Robinson came out and stopped Turpin. Incredible stuff, heroic stuff, the stuff of legends. Number 2, greatest upsets of all time, Max Schmeling against Joe Louis. Joe Louis, Max Schmeling couldn't miss Joe Louis with a right hand. Joe Louis was carrying his left hand low, and Schmeling couldn't miss. Eventually, he knocked Joe out. I think it was the 12th round. The 12th round, was it? He was carrying his left hand too low. And as I say, nobody could see this coming. It was Joe Louis's first defeat. What a great win for Max Schmeling. But Joe came back and avenged that defeat, destroying Schmeling in one round. And at the time, America and Britain was at war with Germany, and there was a lot of politics there. Yep. Uh, so we'll come to in my opinion, only my opinion, the biggest upset of all time, and that was James Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson in 1990 at the Tokyo Dome. Douglas was a 42-1 underdog. His mother had died uh, 3 weeks before the fight, and he was thinking of pulling out, but he decided to go through with the fight. Yeah, going into the fight, Douglas had losses to David Bay, Mike White, Jesse Ferguson, and Tony Tucker. He also had a draw with Stephen Tangstad and a split decision win over Rondell Tex Cobb. Hardly inspiring stuff for the going to a fight with mighty Mike Tyson, who was seen as invincible. But Douglas had rattled off 6 wins in a row, including wins over Trevor Berbick and Oliver McCall, to earn his shot at the undisputed world heavyweight title. Tyson was 37-0 going into the fight, but his life was in turmoil, with allegedly abusive relations with Robin Gibbons, contractual battles between long-term manager Bill Clayton and promoter Don King, and Tyson had even broke up with his lifetime coach Kevin Rooney. So a lot of madness getting into the fight, but then again it was a lot of madness getting into the fight with Mike Spinks. Yep, as I say, Buster Douglas' mother died 23 days before the fight, and singer Bobby Brown tells a story that he was out partying with Tyson the night before the fight, and they partied till the early hours. Tyson didn't get no sleep. And inspired Douglas fought the fight of his life, offering it up for his late mother. And Tyson was being outboxed in every round. In the 8th round, Tyson was hurt and he wobbled. With seconds to go, Tyson unloaded an uppercut that dropped Douglas, and what an uppercut. Douglas listened to the referee and was on his feet when the referee counted 9. The bell rang for the end of the round. In the 9th round, Douglas took control again, and in the 10th round, he battered Tyson, who was dropped by a lovely Douglas uppercut. Tyson reached for his gum shield and rose, but Tyson was in bad shape, and the ref quite rightly stopped the fight. In the aftermath, the WBC stripped Douglas of his title, saying 14 seconds had elapsed before Douglas rose from the uppercut in the 8th. Don King and his buddy Jose Suleiman tried to pull a fast one, but there was no support for them. They eventually caved in and reinstated Douglas as WBC and undisputed champion under the pressure. So there you are, folks. That's my top 20 boxing upsets. Still can't remember. What was it Leonard says? If you're a wise man, you'll batten Hagler. No, that's what it was. Got it. If you're a betting man, you'll batten Hagler. But if you're a smart man, you'll batten me. And that was very true, very prolific. Thanks for listening to me again, folks. Take care, God bless, and have a blessed weekend.